Skip, baby.
What's going on, man?
You got another?
Sorry, they cleaned out like we supposed to have.
Nah, it's all right, man. That's some beautiful art right here, brother. Some beautiful art, man. Let me ask, Double, man, what's the name of this building we in, brother?
Yeah, the Watts Historical Train Station. It's
Watts-
the first building that was erected in this community. It was built in 1904. And so the building itself right now is 117 years. This is like one of the depots that majority of the migrationists who migrated from the southern states got off at. You know what I'm saying? It started in downtown, and this is one of their destinations and stuff that migrated during the 40s, 50s, 60s, and all these other times of represent the historical migration from from African Americans into Southern California. And so everybody heard about the lines and stuff that was drawn between Central Avenue that stretches from downtown all the way to the ports. This side of Central is where that implosion of hundreds of thousands of blacks who migrated here for escaping Jim Crow South, and also came here during World War II to work in the military production, because it was always about the military. Most of the people came here was looking for opportunities, working in the warehouses, working at Goodyear and Firestone, because these was all the factories that were supporting the war during World War II. And so most of our black folks who migrated and left the southern states came here by way of the Underground Railroad. My mother tells a lot about that story because she was a part of that migration, and came on the green train and then started in downtown, but they all migrated here to Watts. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Man, that's funny that you say that, because my family is one of the families that came from downtown here to Watts.
Yes.
On 110th and Wilmington.
Oh,
They
yeah.
actually built the Macedonian church on 114th. A lot of people know my auntie Arvinola,
Yes,
but don't
yes.
realize that I'm one of the descendants of that.
Everybody got their roots here.
Yeah.
And that was so thoughtful during 1992 in our trying to bring these housing project developments together, because we understood that the roots are here. And after the Fair Housing Act and the 68 riots here, a lot of black folks was able to migrate to the suburbs, which was the West Side, Compton, and Long Beach, and all these other different areas, which at that time was considered the suburbs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So white flight took place, saying, during those times where black folks was migrating here in numbers.
Right.
And so Watts always had that foundation. And so in our thoughts and organizing back during the early and late 80s was always having that in mind, of that we brought Watts together, as far as in gangs, in dealing with this historical gang truce, that it had a domino effect around the city, because most people have got their roots here.
And it actually worked, brother, because my mentor, before I had met you, act just like you. My mentor, Darren Bo Taylor, and I used to say, what's wrong with this guy? And then when I got a chance to spend time with you, I want to thank you for giving him everything that you had, because I definitely saw it blossom on the west side, brother.
My relationship with Bo, when I met Bo, Bo was doing cleanups. He was getting a lot of these properties from the banks, and he was creating jobs and opportunities for a lot of brothers, because he was, these houses sometimes was trashed out, and he was doing the cleanups. And me and Bo linked up, and I seen him. I said, man, Bo's doing some great things. And in my mind, I'm always thinking, how do we replace the criminal industry in our community, which is drugs and purse snatching and robbing, and how we replace that with something positive. And so me and Bo got to linking up and talking, and then he wanted to formalize an organization. And I think our first meeting we met was at World on Wheels.
Yes, sir.
And that's when we all sat down and had a beautiful conversation. And we came up with the concept of Unity One. And when we formalized, I remember we did that march. We did a march down Crenshaw, and stuff like that. And it was profound. And then our second linking up is that, like I say, always trying to be creative and thinking about opportunities to replace things that led us to conflict and violence and stuff like that was creating jobs and opportunities. I took the concept of what he was doing, and I was like, man, let's go up to Jim's house and let's meet with Jim and utilize our influence and get to the city to get more public work opportunities like this, you know what I'm saying, and setting up these companies whereas we can do a lot of beautification projects around in our city, in our community. And so I introduced Bo to Jim Brown. And from that, you know what I'm saying, him and Jim Brown history started to develop it because I had transitioned myself out and started doing more grassroots things and stuff like that. But Bo kind of picked up the pendulum and the torch with Jim Brown and with other No Guns and a few other people, like you said, with you guys and Unity 3 and all the other beautiful organizations that was sprouted during that time and started doing a lot of great works and stuff like that.
And it all started because of the work done on the Truce in '92.
Yes. It was a beautiful, like I say, an expansion, of organization. You know what I'm saying? Because, out of the Truce, intervention and prevention and crime prevention strategies was created by grassroots organizations. Me and Tony Bogard, after a snipe was arrested for a $7 bunk robbery, formalized Hands Across Watts, and it was myself, Tony Bogard, Ty Sticks from the Nickerson Gardens, and then we brought in two other people that we met at Jim's house, Barbara Becknell, who did the thing about Tookie Redemption, and Pat Mulligan. And we formalized that corporation and organization, which is one of the first, besides Youth Gang Service and what they was doing, to help start these whole grassroots organizations that was, generating the revenue support to try to create what the treaties was based upon. The treaties was based upon jobs, opportunities, black folks respecting each other. There was codes of honor, way how we, tried to prevent, certain conflicts after we had, unified and stuff like that during the ceasefire and the truce of '92. And so we was always trying to find ways to sustain that whole process. And, the car shows with, Watts Life with Big Al at the time. And we was using everything that we was trying to do from a grassroots standpoint of view, because we know how critical that was to maintain and sustain, the treaties agreement that we signed in 1994, after 1992. Because 1992 was basically a truce. Most people don't understand that a truce is when you bring in opposing forces together. And we brought these opposing forces together from the different developments, and we created a ceasefire, which was something that was temporarily. It lasted for 2 years, and then in 1994, we was able to sign a document called the Peace Treaty that identified the sustainable things, that sustained that whole process that we came together in 1992 about, So it's more, the language, and I know people like, we say peace treaty and things like that, and it's more to just, the terms is what's been documented up under the terms. And so, by...
Is that the Adon going, brother? Is that the call to prayer going on right now? Brother, it's important. Don't ignore the call to prayer, brother. I could always press pause, man, but it's Salat de Juma, brother.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah, being a Muslim in the holy month of Ramadan, and what's crazy, 30 years ago, during the historical truce, it was during the month of Ramadan.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's significant. And in the history, we talk about Imam Mujahid.
Right.
Imam Mujahid, I've been knowing for 40 years, over 40 some years. And because my mother, when she transitioned back to Islam, that was her masjid. They organized that masjid up there on Central 112. And so we had the relationships and stuff like that. And when me and him met, when I was leaving Jim Brown House, because Jim Brown House was another platform that we utilized to have truces, which is basically bringing opposing forces together from different hoods and stuff.
Give me some names up there at that time.
Oh man, let me tell you some names. Keith Stone from Roman 60.
Keith Stone, rest in
Big
peace.
U
man.
and all that crew
Big
and
U,
all that
okay.
stuff. You know what I'm saying? We had also up there the Santana Blocks. We had Manuel. We had Juan. We had a few people from Santana. We had the Venezuelan. That was powered by Rosalind Cash, the actress Rosalind Cash, and Big Philippe, and he brought a few of the brothers out there. I think his brother's name was. I'm trying to get their name, but we had the Venezuelans up there on point. We had the Grave Streets, you know what I'm saying, which is part of the big influence because All of our homies been up there. Bow Wow, all of us was up there. High T, Ray, Playmate, Chopper, and we always had an influence up there. And one of my leaders, teachers, T. Rogers out on the west side. You know
That's what I was waiting on, brother. I was waiting to hear my mentor.
The 12, you know what I'm saying? And,
he would ask me all the time, Skip, did you get permission to speak? And I would say, no. T, do I have permission to speak? And he would say, no, you should ask first.
So we had over 28 different neighborhoods up there. You know, we had the triple OGs up there. We had Jamel Barnes and Baby Huey and Batman and we had that crew up there, man. We had the Nation of Islam. We had Anthony Perry, who went to the USC library and drafted and got the documentary, the treaty documentary from the USC library. We had the Nation of Islam. We had those brothers, Brother Terry Ross, that's doing great works out there in Pasadena and Altadena.
Yes, indeed.
And I mean, we had over 28 different sets up there that was working on peace. And then it went from peace to really trying to create more economic opportunity, because there was this myth out there that every gang member in the city of LA was making hundreds of thousands of dollars selling crack and all these different things. It was a myth, because most of the people didn't make hundreds of thousands. Most people was really homeless. And then you only had a few influencers who had money in the neighborhood, and they only could help so many people even in that. And so that whole myth about crack cocaine and the hundreds of thousands, $1 million that everybody was making was kind of like a myth in a sense. And we kind of understood that, and it was redefining those things when we was meeting with Jim and going through something that he took us through. He took us through a curriculum called Life Management Skills, the American program.
The basic life
skills on human development. And it was so critical at that time, because we didn't identify ourselves as human beings. We was labeling ourselves as gang members and Crips and Bloods, and this is a subculture that we created after the civil rights movement had ended during the 70s. And so this whole monologue that was created from that created a subculture amongst us. And I mean, everybody know how that is. You know, I was an active fool, you know what I'm saying, after coming from the Nation of Islam and my family being involved with all that, and to transition into public education and, you know, living in the Jordan Down housing projects, man, you know, and growing up around that culture, you know, in a Christian total dominant population. And I mean, it was a shock. And I mean, after the war, I mean, poverty set in, you know, discrimination set in. Most of us wasn't working. Crack came in during the mid 80s, and that was the implosion. You know, and so we had to, you know, identify with that culture, because, you know, the city of LA was defined, especially in Watts. I can't say LA, I'm gonna say Watts. Every street corner had a different neighborhood. Either on this side you was Bloods, on this side you was Crips, and in between you had Crips and Blood sets. And we all went to one junior high school right there, Markham Junior High School, what we call Gladiator School. And I mean, it was a culture. It was just like everything else, you know what I'm saying? You had to have that religion in you, because, you know, if you was out of bounds and somebody asked you, where you from? Where you from? You can't say, I'm from the Jordan Down. You was getting your ass whooped. Regardless if you was banging or not. So we had to take the badge.
And a lot of people don't understand that I could be born and raised in the Jordan Downs but not be from Grape Street. Man. I could be walking home every day from school from the Nickerson Gardens but not be from Bounty Hunters. Man. But it does not matter, because I'm a part of that area, so I'm gonna be a part of whatever the consequences are.
And when we got there, it was already a war. You know, in the late 70s, you know, it was a person by the name of Loaf on this side of the tracks and Night Owl on this side of the tracks, and it took place right here at the junior high school. These was young kids, right? You know what I'm saying, that had a disagreement. I don't know what it was, but I know that it was a history of one person fatally murdering another person from this side. And from that point on, by the time we got to Markham, we was already taught to bomb first. You know, the things that Tupac talked about was something that we was taught and told once we got to Markham, when people asked you where you was from. You had to bomb first. And
Can I tell y'all a little bit something harder than that? Imagine this, man. Imagine coming off the west side and getting dropped in the school around the corner on Century called the Catholic school right here, man. St. Lawrence of Brindisi.
Yes.
St. Lawrence of Brindisi. So I was dropped there for my 7th grade year to go there. Before the shopping center was there was a building,
Yes.
and I had to come around that building to catch the bus, and had no idea what the wars that was going on over here, and had to maneuver through all this to get home to the west side where I knew what the wars was about.
Let me tell you something, and that was a scary time.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it was so scary that most of us didn't have a real opportunity to educate ourselves at these local schools because, you know, it was just that type of environment. You know what I'm saying? Every day after school, you know, either the bounty hunters show up on this side or the Gracies show up on this side. So it was always conflict at a junior high school level that allowed us not to really focus in on education other than survival. And like you say, those things right there was detrimental because just because you had on a certain color, you was getting your hair blew off. Right. Or you lived in a certain neighborhood, you got your hair blew off. And that was the understanding. You know what I'm saying? And so for a lot of us who dropped out, who really didn't get the education that was being offered through these public institutions, especially when you're in a central location, couldn't focus because it wasn't about what you learned. It was about, can I make it to 25 without being murdered, without going to prison? You know what I'm saying? And so these things, you know, was happening prior to 1992 in this community. And like I said, we was all subject to it. You know what I'm saying? Because we lived here. You know what I'm saying? Not by a choice. You know, it was by choice because our parents was poor. We come from broken home families, and the community was ravaged by drugs and crime and violence and ignorance. And I mean, we lived in this concrete jungle. Yes, and it was you know, it is so crazy. Like you say, you know, this is how crazy it was when this conflict was going on. Because most of our parents who migrated here from the southern states came on these trains and came to these neighborhoods. They was first, second, third, and fourth cousins during the migration. But during gangs, and we were segregated. They were segregated because on Central Avenue, this was considered the suburbs. In Compton, these were white neighborhoods, so they was not allowed to go over to these sides. And so the thing was crazy is that we was together then. Right. But after the gang wars, what was so crazy is that we segregated ourselves in certain sections now. Right. Now you don't know who your first, second, third, and fourth cousin over there because you can't go over there. They couldn't come over here. Right. And so that created a different form of segregation amongst one another. Whereas we got family members in certain situations in certain locations that we don't know because of segregation based upon gangs and gang violence and things like that, and identify with a subculture that was created, you know what I'm saying, after the civil rights movement and stuff like that. So, man, I truly appreciate your history. I appreciate your work, brother. I know your mother got to be proud of you and your brother, man. Y'all have definitely made changes, not just in the community, man, but nationwide, because people are picking up and doing intervention everywhere as well. So I want to appreciate your time, brother. Thank you for that, brother. Say your name with everybody. Daude Sherrill, you know. Daude Sherrill, yes, sir. Down activist. Yes, sir. You know, advocate, you know what I'm saying, for peace, liberty, crusading for all the other right things, you know what I'm saying, to empower us as a nation and as a people in unity. Appreciate you, brother. All right.